Well, we mentioned the heat, and it looks like it's going to get heated again here tonight. Another hearing among the U.S. House January 6th committee in prime time, and we're going to talk about that right now, get a take on the hearings and what's in store for this evening with Andrew Donaldson. He is a writer and commentator. He is the host of Heard Tell, and he's on the other end of our line right now. Good morning, Andrew. How are you?
Good morning. Good to be with you again.
And good to be with you as well. So what is Heard Tell? Talk about that.
Well, I'm a West Virginian, so in hillbilly slang, heard tell is just how you talk to people. It's that word-of-mouth tradition, which when we think about it, modern media and social media, and really all it is, it's just the new version of word of mouth. You know, you sit around the table and like, well, I heard tell this, that, and the other happened, and who did this and that. That's where that comes from. It's just kind of the way we talk. So that's where that was.
Oh, yeah. And I get it. I have a friend from college who grew up right in southeast Ohio, right along the West Virginia line. So she's told me stories, so I get that. The January 6th committee hearings, we've had several of these so far heading into tonight. What is your take on the developments that we have seen and what we have heard, as these committee hearings roll on?
Well, what this is we're getting color and we're getting some details, but we're not really learning anything new big picture-wise. This is a lot of coloring inside of lines we already knew about. We're going to continue that tonight. Tonight's they're saying they're going to focus on the length of time from the start of the Capitol incident and the rioting and all that to when President Trump came out and made his statement. It was about 3 hours, 177 minutes by the committee's reckoning. But we know all this. It's all on video. We know what happened. They're coloring in the line. So the question is, why are we doing this? Well, obviously, there's the show part of this. There's the information part of this. There's the political angle of this. There's a lot of cross streams here. But again, if you want truth, a congressional committee isn't where you go for that. A congressional committee, especially hearings, that's where you go to get versions of the truth. That's where you go to get a show. That's where people build narratives and things like that. So people really have to parse through this. You can come. It's like a buffet. You can come and get what you want. But we've got the polling data now. People, it's about a 60-40 split on who's actually paying attention to this. Then when you get to independents, it's about 55-45. You get to Republicans, it's about 45-55. I think it's loud. I think it's noisy. I'm not sure we're changing anybody's minds here.
Yeah, I mean, there are critics of these hearings who have come out, and especially with this being in prime time, and there's already been one prime time hearing that happened a few weeks ago. There are some out there who say that this is nothing but political theater and it's only for show. Do you see it that way, or is it maybe a little more substantial than what the critics may be thinking?
Well, Congress has a delineated power to investigate and have oversight of the government. That is a good and proper form of them. But you kind of give credence to the performance part of it with what you just said. Prime time, right? Mm-hmm. Why do you have congressional hearings in prime time? Well, you want attention to it. And I understand this is an important topic. I was horrified with what happened on January 6th. I don't want it to ever happen again.
Sure.
Is this the format that's really going to prevent it? I don't know about that, especially with what we're doing here. With we've gotten down some real alleys on what's going on. And it's not that they're not important, but the overarching theme of this was we don't want this to ever happen again. So if we're going to argue about the Secret Service and we're going to argue about what certain people testified, this, that, and the other, are you getting away from that core thing? I would argue we are in a large respect. And again, it's a congressional hearing. It is not a trial. It's not a criminal justice trial. They don't have the power to level any charges here. They would have to farm that back out to the DOJ or local prosecutors do that. Same with the subpoenas that have been denied. They had to take that to a court and let the courts handle it. So I think people hear hearing and they think, oh, criminal trial, there's something substantial going to come out of this, and they don't understand this is a separate process. There's it's parallel and sometimes intersects, but the terminology and things like that get people a little mixed up. But putting it in prime time, that does give credence to people that go, it's a show, because hearings are for show. That's the point of the show, and I don't even mean that derogatory. Sure. It just is. Mm-hmm. But that's why they do it. You put Congress people up there, and they get asked one-way questions without any pushback. So, yeah, it's a fair criticism. I think there's some important information here, but I think the show aspect of it, you're probably going to get lost a little bit.
Yeah, that's kind of my viewpoint there. Why are we putting it on at night? I do hear people on the other side, though, who say it's a way for people who may work, say, an 8 to 5, 9 to 5 job that they can see for themselves. They can see these hearings for themselves and see what's going on. They get more people to watch. But do you buy that argument? I mean, is it not good enough to have these hearings during the day as they've been doing more often than not?
That argument leads to something that's a little bit of a bigger issue, but okay, they want people. Who do you want to see it if your argument is, well, we want people that watch primetime television, that's our audience to see it. Well, who's that audience? Because we have all the data in the world now. You're a radio station. You have all these metrics yourself.
Sure.
How do people get their news now? Most people get their news through their social media. Most people get their news through alternate news sources. You can get your news from where you want to get it from. So who is that primetime talking head news media audience? And this is basically a Democratic-led hearing because the Republicans didn't want to participate. This is to that audience, the people that already watch a whole lot of news, who's probably more center-left to the left. That's the audience they're shooting at, which brings, again, the political implications of this. Again, if you want truth, you have an investigation. If you want a show, you have a hearing. So that's where this breaks down a little bit. We're
talking with Andrew Donaldson, a writer and commentator, host of Heard Tell, a show. He's based out of West Virginia. And Andrew, taking a look at tonight's hearing here, we're expected to hear testimony from former Deputy White House Press Secretary Sarah Matthews and National Security Council member Matthew Pottinger. I think that's how you pronounce it. Don't hold me to that. But they were among those Trump officials who resigned in the wake of the Capitol insurrection. Anything else that we should know, or anything else that maybe you may know about these two and what they might bring to the hearing tonight?
Well, I like to judge people by their actions and not their words. So the fact that these are part of the people who, whatever they knew and whatever they saw, they thought enough of it to say, nope, I'm good, I'm out, I'm not having anything to do with this, and resign. I'll give them a little bit more credence and listen to what they have to say, as opposed to some other people who, by their actions, say, well, I stayed, or I had a political motive, or I hung around afterwards. And then I'll be like, oh, well, I'll go write a book 2 years later. We've seen a string of these, right? Somebody leaves the administration, and they write a book like, oh, I was against this all the time, but I stayed and collected the check the whole time. So for me, yeah, I'll give you a little bit more credence when your actions tell me that you saw something that offended your integrity enough that you wanted to leave. I'll hear you out on that. I can respect that. I'll hear them out and hear what they say to that, as opposed to some of these people 2 years later that come out, write a book, and go, oh, I was against this all the time, but now I want to cash in on it. I get a little tired of that, so we'll see what they say.
It's an interesting viewpoint. I think it's a fair point at that. Short on time here for this segment. I'd love to talk a little bit more about it. Andrew Donaldson, writer and commentator, host of Heard Tell. Andrew, real quick before we let you go, where can we find you online?
Yeah, 4 for the Fire on Twitter. Heard Tell Show's our podcast radio show. We really enjoy it. We don't yell. We just get the straight information. Would appreciate people checking it out, all the podcasting platforms, YouTube, Facebook, with our radio partner, Big Talker. And it's always a pleasure to talk to you. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us. And yeah, yelling's not usually a good thing. I would agree with that. You're listening to the 1320 WILS Morning Wake Up here on a Thursday morning. Great to have you with us. When we come back, we will talk about the FDA. They're weighing a potential over-the-counter sale of contraceptive pills, which will be the first of its type in the U.S. All that and more coming up right here on the 1320 WILS Morning Wake Up. Rich Earl here with you, filling in for our interim host, Mike Austin. More straight ahead. Keep it right here. More compelling talk radio, 1320 WILS.